We believe the NFL is going forward, and it looks like they're going to try and find a way to get to training camp at the end of the July calendar month, but we don't think one person is going to be there for one team, and that would be running back Dalvin Cook for the Minnesota Vikings, essentially saying he is not going to show up for any workouts without, quote, a reasonable extension. The Pro Bowl running back no longer will participate in any team-related activities. Of course, there are none at the moment. So basically what he's saying is I won't be showing up for training camp. Basically, our Adam Schefter, hearing from a source, he's out without a reasonable extension. He will not be showing up for training camp or beyond. As all of this, including the Dabo talk, is Straight Talk by Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. And the interesting thing about Dalvin Cook is the position that he plays.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's a running back. He's also a very productive running back. In fact, our fine research department, Bush, put together some very interesting numbers. The top 5 scrimmage yards per game last season, Christian McCaffrey was first. Dalvin Cook was second. Derrick Henry was third. Leonard Fournette was fourth. Now, Christian McCaffrey in 2020 just got a new contract. He'll be making $16 million. Derrick Henry, who is still going to be on the franchise tag, if nothing else, is going to make $10.3 million. Leonard Fournette is in one of the last years of his contract. He's going to make $6.3 million. And Dalvin Cook, as a second-round running back, is scheduled to make $1.6 million. So you can certainly understand from Dalvin Cook's perspective, hey, look at all these yards, and I'm behind only Christian McCaffrey. By the way, third ever 1,000 season last year, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving, and only he's averaging more scrimmage yards per game than me. I should be making more money. And that is a reasonable assumption, especially when the Minnesota Vikings just threw an extra $30 million
yes, they did.
at Kirk Cousins this offseason when he had a guaranteed contract for a high number going into this season anyway. But are you going to pay it if you're the Minnesota Vikings because of the position?
And again, he's the last year of his deal. It was a second-round pick, so it's a 4-year deal. He didn't have that option year to deal with, so next year would be his 4th year. Has not played a complete season yet. In 4 games, 11 games, and last year 14 games. But in those 14 games, I mean, over 1,100 yards, 50 receptions, I believe as well, 53 receptions. So catches the ball out of the backfield. There is no doubt he carries a load. And for a team that ran a little bit more than they passed last year, they do like the running game, and he has been a huge, huge part of that. But, I mean, we look at the top guys that got paid, but you also look at a guy like Melvin Gordon who tried to hold out while he was under contract and no go. He ended up, basically going back, losing that situation. Now, Minnesota definitely needs Dalvin Cook, but how far are they willing to go to try and keep him?
Yeah, it's tough because in the past I've always been like, well, you pay what you've got and how you're structured, right? Meaning when the Dallas Cowboys were paying Ezekiel Elliott at the time, they were structured as a team that had gone through him on their offense. They were getting ready to transition to the offense we saw last year that made much more use of Dak.
And now they're not going to pay Dak. It's crazy.
In a lot of this, which is wild, but we've seen this time and time again, and for Minnesota, the way that they've invested, it would look like they're a passing team, but we know the way Mike Zimmer operates. Like I jokingly said to someone yesterday, I feel like if Mike Zimmer could go down and hand Dalvin Cook quarterback money, he would, because that's how much the run game has meant to Zim over the last few years.
He fired an offensive coordinator for not running it enough.
Yeah, I mean, that is how much this aspect of football matters to the guy coaching this football team, so that's got to be factored into it. But, man, I just don't know what about the recent trends in the running back market indicate that you're going to get anything. Like, you could end up getting a pay increase based on what you were going to make, and he didn't say he wanted a market-setting contract or anything like that.
He
said reasonable. So what does that look like now for a running back is maybe the thing we need to determine.
I mean, you look where the top ones are. How far down do you go till you get to $10 million a year, right? Because Christian McCaffrey went over that. We know other guys that are over that. Zeke's over that. Gurley had been over that. So is that a number? Is that a reasonable number for him? Because, we can talk about the position, but then I think you have to throw in just what we've been talking about, the importance of that position to that team and that coach. And it seems to be very important to Minnesota to have that running game. And Dalvin Cook is the man there. Both running the ball, like I said, catches it out of the backfield as well, which is an added bonus, but he runs the ball extremely well, averaged 4.5 yards a carry last year. So that position may be deemed a little more important in Minnesota under this current coaching staff than maybe some other teams may value it.
It's just interesting because you look at the way they've paid out on this team, and if you're giving all of this guaranteed money to Kirk Cousins over the last however many years, you would think a lot more of the offense would be going that route, and especially what they've had at the wide receiver spot. Obviously, no more Stephon Diggs, but everything you had with Adam Thielen there, the tight end room that you've got there, certainly other weapons that you've added this offseason there, it seems like it's primed to be an offense that doesn't have to work through the running game, but we know what it looked like last season for them. It's not like we have to go back to far to find that.
I was with you. And obviously, you can make the same case for Derrick Henry, who's also on that list that I just talked about. I mean, no one was doing the running back thing better than Derrick Henry, and yet he finds himself, looks like going into this season. I mean, we haven't heard any movement. No. About a contract, a long-term contract between the Tennessee Titans. And we're getting close to 30 days out. I mean, July 15th is the deadline.
You know, and then you risk if you don't give him a new deal, if he sits out and doesn't play, I mean, then where do you go? Have you burned all your bridges there where he doesn't come back? Now you could tag him if you want, but I guess if he doesn't play all season, you know, you don't get the season. So I doubt it would go that far. Again, this is where we go. Do we see a guy actually sit out an entire season? He made it sound like I'm not going back unless there's a reasonable offer on the table.
Reasonable is such an interesting word.
Reasonable is an interesting word.
It's to me, when you say reasonable, it sounds like okay, but just give me a little taste.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it sounds like to me. I'm hearing from Dalvin Cook. Like, you better just a little something.
Come on, sweeten the pot.
Sweeten the pot a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, meet me halfway on here because we had heard in the past from other guys that I wanted to be a market setter when it came to Le'Veon and some of these guys coming out.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.